Hey there, fellow parents. Welcome to the Real Life of Parenting podcast, where we're all about embracing the chaos, sharing the laughter, and navigating the roller coaster ride of parenthood. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jenna.
And together, we're your co-pilots on this adventure.
Each episode will dive into the highs and the lows and the hilariously unpredictable moments that make parenting the wild journey it is.
So get ready for real stories, genuine conversations, and a few parenting hacks along the way. Whether you're dealing with diaper disasters or celebrating those small victories, we've got your back.
So buckle up, hit play, and let's embark on this parenting odyssey together. This is The Real Life of Parenting, where every episode is a reminder that you are not alone in the beautiful chaos of raising little ones.
Hi, and welcome back to the Real Life Parenting podcast. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we have a special guest, Kyle Jetsel. Today he's going to talk to us all about himself and basically being a dad of 6 kids. So welcome, Kyle.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to hear what kind of questions you have, and hopefully I can be helpful for everyone who watches.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start off with, tell us about yourself there, Kyle.
So my name's Kyle Jetsel, and I grew up, I'm originally from Texas. You probably hear a little bit of an accent. And I grew up in inner city Dallas, in kind of a rough neighborhood. You would look at me and you wouldn't think I grew up in this type of neighborhood. But so when you grow up in an area like that, you're built, it's kind of and this is going to sound dramatic, but it's a kill or be killed. You kind of have to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of made me tough, so to speak, right? If you don't stand up for yourself in a physical manner, then you're just going to get picked on the rest of your life. And so when you grow up in these atmospheres, you develop this toughness and this, a little bit, I called it white rage, right? Because I was the only white kid in the neighborhood, and I wasn't happy to be in that neighborhood, and I wasn't happy to be poor. And I wasn't happy when I didn't fit in perfectly. So a lot of these things, create some intensity in you, and you just have to kind of make do. So, basically that's who I was until I married my sweet wife.
Mm-hmm.
I was 25 and she was 20, and she was the polar opposite of me. She was super feminine, sweet, kind, just really kind of the other end of the spectrum. And so it was really interesting to watch how she did things. And she actually, I tell people this and it makes them laugh, but when we first got married, she said, okay, before we have kids, we need to develop some white trash rules. And I said, what? And she said, there are things that you do that I don't want to continue through our marriage and our family. And so she laid out a list of these rules, and I thought, come on. But she was pretty, and I'm so glad she did, because it started to it helped me to grow into something that could be an effective parent, right? Instead of just being this guy that tried to control everything through violence and the threat of violence. And, she really did a good job of loving me into the kind of person that I think would be a better father and husband for her. So.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Definitely need that little bit of it's almost like a yin and yang, right? So she's offsetting all your tough guy attitude, and maybe you're making her a little more spicy, I guess would be the words to say. And
she's making you a little softer.
Yeah.
And you know what? That tended to happen too, because she was very shy and passive. And the longer we were married, I saw her kind of come out of her shell a little bit and, take on a little bit more of, you're right, it did. You kind of tend to take on each other's personality a little bit, and hopefully the better parts of each other's personality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the worst of both the worlds kind of thing. No,
well,
definitely not.
When the kids come along, they can start to make you do that a little bit, right? Because the kids create these challenges that it's just the two of you, it's one thing. But when the kids start to create that stress and that, the challenges, and that's when it can be pretty interesting, right? That's when you start to, they can either rip you apart or they can kind of grow you together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how many kids do you have?
I have 6 kids, and I have 5 sons and 1 daughter. And I had 4 sons. We had our 4 first sons just wild animal boys. And my youngest at the time was 6, and my wife came to me. My wife is so feminine, and she just reeks of that personality. And she came to me and she said, "I really want a girl." And every time we had a boy, she wanted a girl. Right? That was who she was. And so after the fourth son, after 6 years, well, she at first after the fourth son, she said, "Okay, I'm just going to be a mom of boys, and that's it." But after 6 years, she came to me and said, I think we should try one more time to have a girl, and this is it." And so we did that, and we ended up getting twins, but one of them is a girl. So I have 5 sons and 1 daughter. Yeah.
Wow. And what are their ages now?
So my oldest is 29. He's married. He's going to be 30 this year. I've got a 27-year-old son, 24, 22, and then I have 16-year-old twins. My twins just
Wow.
turned 16, just got their driver's licenses. So
Ooh.
yeah, that's always fun.
You
Oh
gotta
yeah,
go
it's
to
a fun time.
make sure you go to church and pray a little extra.
Yeah, every morning and every night. There's a lot of
Yeah.
that going on for sure.
When you're about to get in the car with them, a little.
Yeah, you tend
Uh,
to, that's and you guys haven't gotten there. Yours are quite a bit younger, but the first time you let your
yeah,
son or daughter drive off in your car the first time, alone, it's frightening
yeah,
because you think, I'm sending my kid off in a 3,000-pound weapon, right?
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And not only could they hurt themselves, they could hurt, and you just have to just like set it to the side sometimes or put it in the hands of a higher power or something, right? Because
Yeah,
it'll shake you. And for the whole time they're gone, you're like counting the minutes and looking at your watch, and you want to make sure they're safe somehow, but you kind of have to, at some point, you have to let go, right? And let
Yeah.
them experience those things. But it's
yeah.
really hard with that very first one. It's really hard.
Oh, I bet. In because you're in Texas, right?
I'm now in Idaho, but I grew up in Texas. Yeah.
Okay. So do they make you like when you're 16, I guess, do they make you drive with a person like when you have your first stage of your license, or is it just straight away they can get in the car and drive off?
Yeah, they want you to have 6 months with a licensed driver next to you.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
yeah, so they'll give you a learner's permit basically, and they give you 6 months to
Yeah.
practice with a parent or guardian or something. And so, once they do go off on their own, it's you have a little more confidence, but you also have to be really good about keeping your mouth shut a lot when they're learning. Right, because
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know about you guys, but I'm more comfortable when I drive than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes other people drive a little faster than me. I'm a little fidgety, right? And I drive, I'm kind of when you grow up poor, you get these real junker cars and you drive them real slow because if you accelerate too fast, they could blow up. And so you learn to my kids tease me, they say I drive like a grandma because I don't get in the car and go fast and stop
Yeah.
late because I drove these cars that really wouldn't work like that, right? I didn't want to ruin my car, and so I drive like a grandma. And my kids so far have picked that up, but when they first start to drive, their feet are a little heavy, right? They break a little
Hmm.
late, and you just get so fidgety that you're slamming your feet through the floorboard of the passenger seat sometimes. But what you
Yeah,
don't
you
want
get jerked around a little bit.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
but what you don't want to do is destroy their confidence by correcting everything they do. And,
That's right.
so it's really it's it's not a bad idea to let them learn with some other people first before they
Yeah.
get with you. But once they get with you, yeah, it can be a challenge, but fun.
That's perfect. I'm interested to know what made you want to reach out to us in regards to doing a podcast episode with us?
You know what? I think the name of your podcast, right? You use the word real,
Hmm.
right? And I think all too often we all tend to want to project that we're good parents, right? Or, we dress our kids up a certain way and make them sit in a line at church, or, we want them to behave in certain situations because it's a reflection of us, right? That's how we feel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you will see some parents even go so far as to the world, these kids are perfect, right? And that's just not real, right? I mean, it's just not real. What is
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
is, feral boys that figure out if they sharpen the ends of sticks, they can make spears to throw at each other in a competition. What's real is, kids jumping out of trees onto trampolines to bounce over the fences to their neighbors' houses, right? What's real is kids that will challenge you, that'll say, "I hate you, mom," because they know if they can get mom out of sorts, they can manipulate situations, right? Or you know what I'm saying? What's real is not this pretty stuff that you see on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
What's real is the challenges and the stress and all the things that go on behind the scenes in your home during every stage of their growth, from little bitty to toddlers to preteens to teens, and it changes and the dynamics change, but it's real hard is what it is, right? The real
Yep.
stuff
Absolutely.
is what nobody shows the world,
Yep.
right? And so I think
Absolutely. It's
the name of it alone got my attention, and then I watched a little bit of it, and just seeing you guys, you were just chatting, right, about stuff, and that got my attention, and I thought, I wonder if I can be helpful, and certainly part of what I try to do is, when you raise 6 kids and they're challenging and spirited, and we got a lot of words for them, right? And challenging, spirited. Some people call them strong-willed, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
you can probably tell from my personality just in these few minutes we've talked, that was kind of me too, right? And
Hmm.
so uh, when you face those things, there's if you go into it and say, uh, I'm gonna be a good parent, and that's it, and you're not really terribly conscious of all the things going on and the mistakes you're making and how to fix them and how to face those challenges with love and kindness, then things can go horribly sideways. And we see all the time these kids out there doing things and having challenges and problems because of, right? I call it default parenting
Yeah.
sometimes, right?
Yep.
I mean, you do what I say or else. And that becomes default parenting. And once that default parenting happens, then there's no thought, there's no approach, right? I mean, you can read a book, but if you don't apply it, you just read a book, right?
Right.
And so
Hmm.
one of the things that I've seen is a lot, right? Everything from kids coming at me with knives to depression to, I mean, the gamut, all the way to kids that seemed perfect and behind the scenes were struggling. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
being able to see all those things and raise those kids and end up on the other side with a family that seems to really love each other and get along, I kind of want people to know it's going to be hard, but you get to choose your hard. It's going to be hard, and you're going to have to face these things and really be thoughtful in your approach, or you can just do nothing and your kid's going to be out of control and it's going to be really hard. And at the end, you get a dysfunctional family, right? Maybe your kids don't like you or they want to escape your
Hmm.
iron fit, whatever it may be. So a lot of what I do is just try to help parents, decide and share some stories that might help them say, I can try that or I can do that, because I want to see happy families. That's my goal,
Yeah.
right? And it takes that effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's great. I can definitely relate to wanting some of that at least. Happy family is definitely something I think that I want to strive for. And recently, even though ours are only toddlers, the girl is really putting us through our paces the last few days. She's been
Yeah.
extremely, I'll say, strong-willed. She's been trying to tell us where to go and how to get there, and
she's gotten the whole feel of her own independence.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
strong, independent woman
very
doesn't need no man.
exactly. She's really been putting us through our paces. I'd say the last week, I wouldn't even say a couple days, probably the last week or so.
Yeah.
We've had our challenges with her for sure.
Mhm. Are
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
I mean, everybody goes through it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I tell parents, I coach parents that have strong-willed children, right, or challenging or spirited. And one of the things I tell them is, why are you shocked, right? When your kids misbehave or act crazy or try to power play you, don't be shocked. That's what kids do. That's what they're supposed to do. They're trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so we should expect them to misbehave or try things or try to run the family. And the cool part is they'll do what works. So if they're trying things and it works, if we allow it to work, then they'll keep doing it, right, until we make it more fun and productive for other things that are more productive to work, right? We start to give them the structure and we say, sweetie, that's not going to work. What will work is this, right? Or whatever the
Hmm.
case may be. But if we get out of sorts, if you get angry at your 2-year old and you find yourself in a state of rage or anger or frustration, then you're a 2-year old and now she's on level ground, right? And it's hard not to do it. It's so hard not to do it
Yeah.
because what the heck is going on here? This 2-year-old's challenging me. No way, not in my home, right? I'm not having it.
Yeah,
And,
like the most recent thing that she's done is like she used to love bath time, absolutely loved it, loved bubble baths, everything, and she just decided this past week that the bubbles are literally going to kill her, and bath time is a huge struggle now. Like she will not go in, she won't even go near the bathroom. The second we turn the water on, she starts crying, and I'm just like, girl, you used to love baths. Like I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Like
it
it's
can be
just
it can be silly stuff like that, right? It really
yeah.
can. But they're
Yeah.
exercising. My wife used to say, and I love this analogy. She said, "Kids are like velociraptors," is what she would say, right? And what she meant by that is, if you've ever seen Jurassic Park, that the velociraptors are kept in a pretty well contained container, right? And it has electrified fences around it.
Yeah.
And they're watching these velociraptors. They say they're very intelligent, right? What they're doing is they're systematically testing the fences and they never stop, right? And
Hmm.
they, and they're testing every point every few minutes and they're getting shocked, but they're not stopping because they're getting shocked. They're just testing. Well, there's got to be a weak spot, right? And once they get around and back to the beginning, they start again, right? And what
Yeah.
happens in Jurassic Park, 30 seconds, they turn off the electricity for 30 seconds and they're out, right?
Yeah.
But she said our
Yep.
kids they're testing things and they're trying things. And how does mom react if I just say no to something I've loved forever? I mean, they may not even be doing it consciously, right? I think they're not. I think they're just, how does mom react or how does dad, what do they do when I decide no to that? And they're watching and learning, right? And so, and it's not because they're bad, right? It's not because
Yeah.
they're bad. They're kids. That's what they do. They're
Yep.
testing, they're probing, and they're never going to stop. Right. And so as parents, we have to understand what we got. We got these strong, powerful little suckers, and we don't want to take that away. Right.
Yeah.
We want them to grow into strong, powerful individuals. So we don't want to like, you know, chop off their legs, right? So they can't jump up fences.
Hmm.
But we have to figure out how to negotiate that part of it and stay right. Give them good parameters so that we can expand their world in a dramatic amount, but also know that there are consequences and there's pain out there if they cross certain lines, right? And so they're going to the best place for them to learn that is in our home,
Yeah.
right? And so because you know why? Because we love them, right? The world
Hmm.
doesn't. If they don't learn in our home to discipline themselves through us helping them, they'll go out in the world, and if they're undisciplined, the world doesn't care. The world will throw them in jail. The
Right.
world doesn't love that we do, right? And so as parents, the best thing we can do is realize I know what they're gonna try stuff. They're gonna do this. They're gonna hate bubble baths one day and they're gonna fight me to take a bath. What the crap is that? Well, it's part of them learning and growing and figuring stuff out, right? And so we gotta kind of work with them and figure it out and create some strategies to help them overcome some anxieties and all these things so that they can be, functional, strong people once they get out from under us and have that discipline that they need. So
Yeah. Well, that's ringing true for sure. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, no,
definitely setting
absolutely.
the boundaries is the hard part and
Yeah.
staying on them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is. And just so you'll know, they'll use you against each other too. Not because you're bad. She might already do that, right? Dad
Yeah.
won't
Yep.
make me do this. I'll go ask dad because I know dad will do this, or I'll go ask mom, right? And so, and then it can cause contention between you two. I told her no cookies after certain, right? And so it's really important for the couple to talk about these things and say,
Yeah.
okay, let's work through what we're going to work on together, how we're going to do it. But it doesn't mean they won't come up with something new to challenge you with, right? We never finish raising them. They're always challenging us, testing,
Hmm.
right? Hopefully just in a good way at some point, right?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah,
It'll
that's
pass eventually.
Yeah.
It's just a phase.
I remember being a kid and going to ask my dad for something, and then he'd be like, "Go ask your mother." And I'd go upstairs, ask mom. No, go ask your father.
See, it's
yeah.
funny because I would,
Back and
I
forth.
would, I would just ask mom, and then the second my mom would be like, "Oh, go ask your dad," I'd be like, "Oh, no, thanks. I already knew the answers."
Yeah.
Oh, see? And here's what happened is you figured that out, right? You figured out how that works. Now,
Yeah.
me, I was a manipulator. So I would
Hmm.
say, I would ask my dad, and he would say, "Go ask your mom." And I would go to my mom and I would say, "Hey, I already asked dad, and he was okay with it. He still didn't come ask you." See how I added that little piece in there?
Yeah.
Right? You see that? See how smart I was, right? And again, not because I'm bad or but because I'm learning. I'm testing, and I'm trying to figure out what works and what gets me what I think I want, right? Not
Yeah.
long term
Hmm.
good, right now good. What I want right now, because that's how we think as kids, right? What I want right now, and so it's
Yep.
a challenge.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
So I think I kind of want to get into a little bit. When you reached out to us, you talked about how your kids were quite strong-willed, and you had a lot of issues, and kind of starting out. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that and
Yeah,
talk about that?
so for quite a while we struggled with, and I'll kind of break it down into phases for you. My first two sons were feral, wild animals, crazy. But I
Hmm.
was too, so I was kind of prepared for that. My wife, on the other hand, was overwhelmed. I don't understand. They won't listen to me. They would scream at her. They would just do crazy. And when I would get home, they knew it's over, right? Because I at that time I ruled with an iron fist, right? And they were afraid of me. Remember, I grew up. The violence or the threat of violence is a powerful tool. For me, growing up, it was that way. And when I would come home and they would act right, she would say, "I can't get them to act right." But when you come home, I said, "That's because they're afraid." And she said, "Is that going to work long term?" I mean, at some point, I'm the shortest in my family almost now, but besides my daughter, my youngest son is
Hmm.
6'5" and 200 pounds, right? He's the 16-year-old. So my boys are big, strong, massive men, right? And she told me, "I don't know if that's going to work because at some point they're not going to be afraid of you." Right.
Hmm.
And she started really saying, "We really need to, we need to discipline through love and kindness and patience as opposed to, fear and guilt and shame." Right. Which was my default. That was my default. And as she started to talk to me about this, I realized, and I started to research it, and I realized that when you parent with guilt and or shame or fear, your kids feel controlled and they want to escape. And the minute they can, they don't want to be controlled, right? And she taught me that when you parent through kindness and patience and love, you can still have discipline, but you have to do it through kindness and patience and love, right? When you do that, kids feel empowered and they can really expand their horizons. And so, but I was really on the edge of, and when you're a big strong guy like me and you have these little
Hmm.
boys, 7 and 5 or something, it's pretty easy. I don't have to be too aggressive or right, just to look. You know what I'm saying? Well, when my
Yeah.
third son came along, my third son was diagnosed with severe autism, and what happened was he was unafraid. There was no line he would not. He had zero fear of me. If I gave him a dirty look, he would throw a brick at my head.
Oh,
There
jeez.
was nothing he wouldn't do. If I put him in a corner, he would get up a million times, and I would have to put him back in the corner a million times, right? Or he would get up and charge me and try to physically, violently hurt me at 4 years old, right? And it really made me. What it did was it made me take maybe 10 years or 20 years of figuring things out and compress it really tight, right? I had to really learn a lot of stuff really fast, or our family was going to be destroyed because we were in a state of. I remember one morning he had a meltdown at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. And normally one of his autistic meltdowns could last, 15 minutes to an hour. Well, this one lasted 4 hours on a Saturday morning.
No.
And every time we would get him a little calmed down, he would ramp back up. And what a meltdown could be is anything from, throwing whatever he could get a hold of. That could be something heavy. He would smash TVs with toys. on this one occasion, he slammed his head through a plate glass window, right? We're talking over the
Oof.
top
Yeah.
stuff. And so when we finally got him calmed down after 4 hours, we were so frazzled, right? The day is done. It's only 10:30 in the morning, but we're so, how it is. You can ruin a whole day with
Yep.
a bad moment, right? And I
Yes.
remember my wife and I, we turned on each other, right? I think when things go wrong or your family's not looking like it's supposed to, or you're facing a difficult challenge, you can tend to want to blame somebody. And sometimes the easiest person to blame is the person right next to you, right? And my wife said, if you would be kinder and more loving, maybe you wouldn't have do. And I said, if you give him more discipline, right? And you would. And so we kind of hurled these insults back and forth for a while. And I realized, remember, my wife was very feminine and passive and kind, but we were at it, right? This was a
Yeah.
fight. And as it continued on, I realized this is not going to stop, and I'm getting even more escalated, and I need to walk away, right? And so I went out on the front porch. We lived in a little town in Texas called Rocket, Texas, just outside of Dallas. I went out on the front porch and I had my keys in my pocket, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to leave, and I'm not. This isn't what I signed up for. Where she doesn't like me, I don't like her. The kids don't like either of us. I don't. This is
Mm.
a mess, right? Our family's a
Yep.
mess. There's no fixing this. I've tried everything. We've taken our son to all these autism specialists and all these things, right? With therapies and us of therapy. And it was we were in trouble, right? And as I stood there on the front porch considering leaving, I remembered a moment in my life where I was a kid playing baseball. I played a lot of sports as a kid. And I remember uh, we were going to win a game and somebody hit the ball to me in baseball. And I made an error. And because of my error, we lost. It was all my fault, right? And I went over to my dad after the game and I said, I wish they hadn't hit the ball to me because then we could have won. And my dad said, he kind of got down on my level and he said, that's not the way we do things, Kyle. Don't you ever leave your success or failure in anybody else's hands. He said, if something is important to you, fight for it. Work, fight, learn, grow. Don't ever give up on something that you care about. Right. And that memory crossed my mind. And I thought, I can't leave. I'm not leaving, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Right. I've tried
Hmm.
everything. I've read books. I've gone to seminars. I've gone to therapies. I've sent my kids to all these places. And in that moment, I remember another thing my dad taught me was if you don't know what else to do, pray. Just pray. Just ask for some sort of divine help. Right. And whether that's God or whatever it is you look for outside of yourself. Right. And so I went under a big pecan tree in our front yard and I just knelt and just started praying. And I said, I don't know what to do, right? I've tried everything. And I remember feeling like God said to me, the problem is not your wife and it's not your kids. The problem is you. Fix you, right? And I had been looking at everybody else, right? I'd been looking at my
Yep.
wife and my kids and I realized in that moment I couldn't control anybody, but I can control my own effort and how I tried to manage me in those heightened and difficult moments. And so I remember going back inside and I told my wife, first I apologized because I know I probably said some things I shouldn't have said. And it's hard to continue to be mad when you pray. It just kind of sucks the mad out of you somehow or another. And I said, you know what? I'm not leaving and I'm going to fix this. And she said, good luck. That's what she said to me. Right? And because
She wasn't over
I
it.
think she had lost, I think she had kind of lost faith in me as a husband and a father, right? She was watching me and I was failing her and the kids miserably, and her faith was gone, right? And I'm glad she said that because I realized in that moment, I need to regain her trust and faith in me. And the only way I'm going to do that is to work hard and really just start putting things in place. And I mean, I tried more things than more people have failed at. I mean, I've failed at more things than people have tried, right? And I
Hmm.
would try things, and when they wouldn't work, I'd try something else, and I'd try something else. And I called myself the driven dad. I'm driven I'm going to die trying, right? If I die and I don't figure it out, that's okay, because I'm going to die trying. I'm never going to give up. And it started to lead me down a path of really better managing my own emotions and thought processes and, you know, being systemic in how I looked at things, right? And creating strategies for myself to keep me in my best state. I like to tell people when their kids are at their worst is when they need us at our best. But it's the hardest time to be that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, how are we at our very best when they are challenging us the very most, right? And so, I really started creating strategies for myself to really put myself in that state. And as I did, and my wife watched, I mean, for a long time, for years, things would go wrong, and I would grab the kids and I would just take them away from her and say, I got it, babe. And she watched as I started to rebuild myself into a kinder, more patient, more loving father. And as I did that, she saw it and she engaged with me more and said, okay, let's talk about what we're going to do together. Right. In doing so, I think I regained at least enough of her trust to join me. Right. Or me to join her. Because I think she had it figured out a lot better than I. She was just so kind and loving and patient to begin with
Yep.
that she had to learn to control her emotions of fear and fright, right, and all these things. So she had some things to do too, but I had so much more to figure out. And so that's really kind of how we got to a point where we started working together and really thoughtfully. We have this thing called we created something we call the cost formula. It's COST. Okay. And anytime one of
Yep.
us got frustrated or angry or discouraged with the kids, we would say, okay, we would, after it was over, we would come together and we would say, okay, what's the frustration? Right. And we would say, okay, the frustration is let's say she was taking bubble baths. She won't even go in the bathroom anymore. Okay. That's the C is the challenge. That's the challenge in cost, right? So we would write out the challenge. Long term, how is this going to be cause problems? Sometimes we think it's a challenge. It's not a challenge. Who cares? Right. I mean, but our kids do need to bathe. It's going to be important down the
Yep.
road, right? So we don't want
Yeah,
her to never
exactly.
bathe again, right? So we would write out the challenge and all the details. And then the second, the O in cost is objective. What is our long-term objective? Well, we want her to not only bathe, but enjoy that and right, not fight through it. And so we had these long-term objectives and we always wanted to do what was best for our kids and and do it in a kind and patient way, right? Now the S in cost is what do we name our strategy? Because the funnier the name, the better. So you might call it the bubble bath strategy, right? Simple
Yep.
name. And then the T in cost is tactics. What are we going to do every time this occurs, right? And be very consistent. And both Shelly and I would talk about it together, and we would create a set of steps that we would follow. And the first step for us in every strategy was always put ourselves into a, a state of love, right? So when she says, I'm not taking a bath, but however she does it, the first step is a state of love, right? Now, the second step, your tactics can be whatever you determine together, but then you get on the same page with this, right? And whether you're putting her in the bath or you are, you follow a series of steps. And again, you're going to have to adjust them sometimes, but you're working together. And she knows she can't manipulate dad or mom. She can't work you, right? It's going to be the same every time. And you follow these steps, and it gives the kids consistency, right? They say, oh, if I do X every time, it's going to be this. And what they do is they start
Mm-hmm.
making adjustments too, right? And so you can do this. We've done this for kids that were biting, kicking, screaming, cursing. We had a son that was depressed, that was threatening, unthinkable things. We wrote up a
Yeah.
cost formula. C, what is the challenge? What is the long-term objective? What is the strategy? What is the tactics? And what it did was we have a 3-inch binder full of strategies, right? And she and I worked together on these so we would apply them the same way. And it gave our kids this tremendous consistency. It created a world for them where they knew if they did X, then Y was going to happen every time, right? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
Y wasn't good for them. Sometimes Y was not fun for them, right? Because we wanted to teach them. And so they would adjust and we would adjust. But the idea was when something frustrates you or it discourages you, you fall into patterns, right? And your pattern is going to stay the same until you adjust that pattern, right? And your pattern may not be healthy long term for you as a mom or dad or for your child, right? And so if you consciously think through, okay, here's the challenge. let me think through this long term, what I really want out of this. I want a happy child, a strong child. I don't want to, you know, dampen their spirit, but I do want to give them structure that allows them to take that spirit and run with it out in the world, right? And that
Yeah.
cost formula really changed our family dramatically because it allowed us to, things only happened once after that. Because once they happened and we were frustrated or angry or discouraged or whatever it was, those emotions that were made us not our best selves, we sat down and addressed it, with that challenge, objective, strategy, tactics formula. And again, yeah, this is what's beautiful about it is you're going to have different challenges than me, and your kid is going to react different to what
Yep.
you apply than my child, right? But here's what does happen: when you change your patterns, they change their patterns, right? Right now, your
Mm-hmm.
kids are seeing things and they're developing patterns. If I do X, mom and dad do Y, right? That's a pattern.
Yep.
You got to break your pattern as a parent, and then they'll say, "Oh, that didn't work," and they learn to break their patterns. They learn to adjust their patterns, right? Because they want to be happy, they want to have fun, just like we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just for us to really kind of mold the situation to let them enjoy their lives as much fun as they want. And it worked. We created strategies for anxiety, like I said, depression, suicidal thoughts, everything from top to bottom. We have strategies that are built out. And sometimes I have to go downstairs and grab my 3-inch binder because I forgot exactly the kids don't
Oh,
do it for a while and then it pops back up and I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. Right.
gotta go to the
And I
table
go
of
grab it.
contents and scroll down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds so silly, it might sound, I had one dad, uh, his daughter wouldn't get ready for school. She would fight him every morning. And so I described a strategy we had tried and I gave him the tactics and I said, you're going to have to adjust. This is your daughter. You and your wife will come up with your own specific tactics. And he said, well, that sounds like too much work. And I said, well, right now you're fighting her for an hour every morning, you and your wife. If you add that together, that's 3 man hours of fighting, you, your wife, and your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That's work. And you're frustrated, you're angry, you're discouraged. You go to work late. Your wife is mad when she drops your daughter off at school and she's late for school, right? That's what you got. That's a lot of work, right? And you're discouraged. I said, try this strategy, stay calm, put yourself in a loving state, address it like this. And you and your wife work together this one morning. And then he came back and he said, you know what? It's my home. She's going to do what I say. I'm the man of the house. And I said, well, how's that going for you? You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, you have to ask yourself, how's this really going for me? If not, well, so he committed to doing it, to following this strategy, he and his wife. And the next morning he called me on, I have a hotline for parents. And he calls me and he was almost giggling from his car phone. And he was going to work. He was 30 minutes early. His wife was happy. He was happy. His daughter was happy because they applied a strategy and they gave her some structure and they did it so lovingly and kind. No matter what she tried, they stayed loving. They stayed patient. And he said, it was hard, but that hard, I'm going to work happy. My wife is happy. My daughter's happy. It's going to be hard either way,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
can be angry, frustrated, and discouraged, and your kids can be mad, or you can apply some things that help you. And it's hard. It's going to be hard, but you can be happy. They can be happy. You can, right? And even if it doesn't work the first time, you can make adjustments, and you can know you're working at getting where you want to get instead of just saying, "Oh, what's next? What challenge is coming next? I hope they never do that again." No, they're going to do it
Yeah.
again. They're going to do it again, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like earlier when you said, not to ever give up and staying consistent. Yeah, like never give up on your family, never give up on yourself.
I think that's one of those things though that it's very easy to just say that you're not going to do something or say that you're going to do something like, oh, if this happens we're going to do this, but like unless you're actually kind of staying true to that and actually writing it down, using your cost, I guess, example would be the best way to kind of make sure
Yeah,
you're staying on task. And you tried for 2 minutes and then you gave up and said
yeah,
whatever, it's not
yeah.
working kind of thing.
It's
But
not.
like,
Nothing's gonna change overnight.
no, and
It's
then it's yeah, adjusting for your child. And I think like he said with that guy who, it's like, yeah, it was work, but like now you're happy and now
yeah,
you're actually going to work happy because
Exactly.
It
Like
was,
you've reached that light at the end of
yeah,
the
it
tunnel.
was much easier.
Yeah.
That was kind of like
Well,
with Liam for a little bit when he would just throw his tantrums and it would go on for like 45 minutes and eventually learn to get him to communicate a little bit, and now it's a lot less usually.
Well, because we've acknowledged him too, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's like the few
before.
and far between tantrums.
Yeah, exactly. So Liam has he has a speech delay, so he's not using his words, but he uses gestures and sounds and stuff like that. We can kind of make out every once in a while what he's kind of wanting or if he's excited, and obviously we know when he's upset. But yeah, like we found it very hard in the beginning because I mean, we felt like we were acknowledging him when he was upset, but like we really weren't actually getting down to his level. And we found that that was really actually like the
Yeah.
game changer was literally getting down on your knees, looking him straight in the eye, acknowledging why he's frustrated, trying to figure out why he's so upset. And like we came out from like 15-20 minute tantrums to like 5 minutes tops, I want to say. So like it's just
Yeah.
super
Well,
important to
then
connect on that level.
during that time we would get frustrated at him and then we get frustrated at each other, and it doesn't help the situation and we're all angry, and
Yeah, it's a vicious circle.
after it's all said and done, we're just sitting there like no energy, no nothing, just you're just
yeah.
like mentally done, right? You're
Yeah.
And you just described a set of tactics that you guys discovered, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of it. That's why I write them down. I'm not a smart guy. I got to write everything down. And it helps me too. If I step away from it when the emotion is gone, right? And I say, I'm going to think through this when it's not happening so that I'm ready for the next time it happens. And I write it down and I have it all down, right? Then I'm prepared, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel so much better. And I will, my wife and I created something we call 100% accountability and a whole lot of grace, right? Because
Yeah.
as parents, we're always going to fall back into old patterns, or we're just going to be lazy sometimes. We don't want to. Come on, I'm tired. Do you have to throw a tantrum now, right? Really,
Yeah.
right? You
This is
guys
the
are
worst
laughing because
time.
you have felt this, right? And
Yeah.
you're still early on, right? As they get bigger, they could get bigger. Those things
Yeah.
get right. And so it's really what the thing that saved us, I think, is just stepping away from the emotion of that moment and saying, here are the tactics, and we're going to follow them together. And when we don't, and when we messed up, I didn't get on her and she didn't get on me. We knew, right? But we said, hey, I want to take accountability that I didn't follow my steps, but also know it's stinking hard. And I'm human and I'm going to give myself a whole lot of grace, right? I did it right the first 5 times. If the sixth time I didn't do it right, I can't call it a failure. I can say, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm a human and I'm going to have
Mhm.
setbacks and I got to give myself, now's the time for grace, because it's easy to let the guilt get you, or the right, or discouragement. I'll never get this. We can't do that, right? We have to just say that was a hiccup, right? I'm going to go back to those. And sometimes, I have one strategy for my son. I have one of my more severe autistic son is diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder,
Okay.
which means if if I can tell him something he likes to do, and if I suggest it, he doesn't want to do it.
Oh.
So I'll say, Eric, let's go get ice cream. And he'll say, no. And I'll think, he loves ice cream. Why would he say that? Right. But because he's just naturally, he's going to go against me. Right. And I couldn't figure this out. I tried all kinds of things, and it took me about a year of working on one strategy before I finally figured out, first of all, in his world, he doesn't understand nuance of language. Right. So if I say, let's go get ice cream, the way I said it was very kind and patient, but he hears, I'm in control. You're my slave. Let's go get ice cream. Right. That's how he heard it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, he doesn't hear me saying it kindly. He hears the words and he's hearing it in his own frame. And I'm telling him what to do. So he's going to say no. Right. So I thought, I can't tell him what to do anymore. I've got to ask him questions. Eric, would you like to go get ice cream? Right. Now I can say both of them kind and they mean the same thing, but not to him. right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it took me almost a year to figure out that I was talking to him as if he were me instead of talking to him and getting in his world and saying, how does he need to hear it? Right. And that was all me. Right. And so the other thing is, I realized as I studied this is we make 50 commands a day from our kids. Now you might challenge that, but that's statistically correct. And I actually one morning counted. I thought that can't be right. I don't command my kids to do things 50 times a day. So I counted one morning. I counted one morning before school. And by the time he was on his way to school at 8 o'clock in the morning, I had counted 27 commands. Right.
Woo.
Now think about that. 50 commands a day times 7 days a week is what? 350 times 4 weeks a month. What is 700? 1400 times a year, 12 months, 1400 times. That's what is that? 16,000 commands a year. No wonder
Yeah.
they don't want to do what we say, right? But even our typical kids, you know? And
Yeah.
so when I started figuring these things out, I thought, okay, I'm always going to ask. And here's what happened is I started asking him. I started using the same language on my other kids, typical kids. Hey, could you clean your room? It's getting kind of dirty, right? Hey, listen, I walked by again. It's a little dirtier. With them, I can say, hey, listen, I've asked you a couple times. Now we're at a point where if it's not done by 8 o'clock tonight, there's going to be consequences. And I don't want to give you consequences. And they know, right? Because I'll write down the consequences because I write it all down. They're like, holy crap, I better clean it before. And I've never screamed or yelled. I've asked a couple of times, right? Now, for my son that's more severe, there are certain things that don't matter. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
he knows how to make up his bed. Does he do it every day? No. Guess what? That's okay. That's not in the big scheme of things. What really matters is that he bathes, he eats, basic things that will help him get through life are really what matters. So you kind of I had to back off of him on and decide what really mattered and then just ask a lot of questions, right? Will you do this? Can you do this? How about later? How about now? How about tomorrow? How about next? And what ends up happening is he gets to decide what he does and how he does it. And we always get there. I just I just have to exercise patience and love as I move him in that direction, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that strategy took over a year to really figure out all those nuances. The good cool thing is I can tell you now how quickly the key points, the tactics, and you can take it and manipulate it to fit your family, right? So there's
Mhm.
power in, but again, I was willing to die trying. I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't care if it took 10 years. I was willing to die trying. And so, that there's things that are going to be hard, right? You're going to have challenges with your kids. You're going to say, this one's beyond me, right? But you don't want to give up, right?
Mhm.
And you just work at it and you say, we're going to figure some stuff out. We're going to try this, adjust, try this, adjust. You can get to where you want to go. And again, if you're still adjusting, when you're 90 years old and you pass away, man, that's valiant to me. That's a beautiful thing, right? Never give up,
Yeah.
right? Because your kids are worth it. Our kids are worth all the effort we can give.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, like, with all your struggles and then like finding the strategies that work for you and your family, would you say that that inspired you to write your book?
absolutely. Yeah. Well, first of all, because I write so much and I document so much, I mean, the book was basically written, right? I mean, all I had to do was just compile everything. But what I found is that, um, and I think we're all guilty of this, right? We're all unique. We're all different. Our families are unique. They're different. Our kids are unique and different. Our relationships with our spouses are unique and different. So it becomes easy for us to say, and here's my challenge working with parents. Well, you know what? I'm glad that worked out for you, but my situation is different. You don't understand, right? And you see this with husbands and wives either, right? Because dad will come home and he'll manage something, and the wife will say, well, they listen to you, they don't listen to me. But you don't understand. I'm with them all day long. They're killing me all day long. You come home in 5 minutes and you make everything right. Right there, right? And see,
Yeah.
I literally feel like I've said that a few times to Jeffrey. Like, I'll have like a really rough morning with them. They're just grumpy and whatever. And I'm handling it. And he comes home in like the afternoon and it's like nothing even happened. They're just so peachy, so warm, so loving when you come home. And I'm like, what is this? Like,
Yeah,
what is
She's on the
this?
couch just
yeah. And
straight face.
the hard part for a lot of moms is, that responsibility kind of falls onto them, kind of naturally in the order of things in a lot of cases.
Hmm.
And imagine, I came across a lady that was, her kids had all grown up and they'd had some real challenges and they were having challenges now as adults. And she said something I'll never forget. She said, you know what? I poured 18 years of my life into all four of my kids. And now they're having all these challenges and struggles. And I'm a failure. I got 18 times 4 years worth of work. And the result is a failure. And it was, you could tell it was killing. And I said, no, you can't do that. You cannot. We all do the best we can at where we're at, right? And
Yeah.
you
Yep.
cannot do that. These kids are, once they leave, they're going to make their own decisions. It's not, you got to, I've told all my kids, listen, when you turn 18, it's all you. You make mistake. I've done my best. I've worked hard. If you have some it's, you have to take I'm taking 100% responsibility and giving myself a lot of grace. It's on you now. You're 18, right? And it
Hmm.
doesn't mean I kick
Exactly.
them out or quit parenting. It just means I understand that you can be the greatest parent in the world and you can have a child that just goes off the reservation, right? It's not a reflection of us. It's them making their own decisions. It's them deciding how their lives go. But one of
Yep.
the biggest challenges I face is parents are not willing to say, or they look at a way of doing things and they say, well, that worked for you, but you're unique and you're different, right? And so my challenge is to say, this is not a one size fits all formula.
Right.
You're going to have to be thoughtful. You're going to have to be creative, right? You're going to have to take some frameworks and make it work for your family. And that's really the cool part of it, because then you internalize the information. It's yours now. It's not somebody saying, do this, do this, say this, and your kids will be fine. It's you saying, I got to make this work for my kids. I'm going to create what's going to work. I'm going to throw out what doesn't, keep what does, and it's going to be my specific formula. But the key is to get over the idea that you don't have to have some sort of framework, right? You need something to start with that gives you some structure so you can start a process and make that process work, right? And so that's
So,
really it's a challenge.
what would you suggest for parents who want to start the process? Like, what would you suggest they should do, maybe to kind of get the ball rolling for themselves?
Yeah, expect to have challenges. Don't be
Yeah.
surprised. Stop being surprised when it happens. Don't say why now or why me or again, or because guess what? This is the way it works, right? You don't get a free pass. Your kids are not going to be perfect without a whole lot of effort from you, and they're still not going to be perfect. It just don't work that way. So quit acting like you should have this, white picket fence life where, you feed them, clothe them, shelter them, and they grow up to be fine human beings. It just doesn't work like that. So we got to stop the game of and trying to prove to everybody else by dressing them the right way and having the right haircut that that right. And so that's step one, is to, it's going to be hard. You got to, but what I'm suggesting is
Hmm.
choose your heart. Okay. You're going to be angry, frustrated, discouraged, arguing with your spouse. There could be family discord. If you default parent, and what I mean by that is don't look at things consciously and say, here's a problem. We probably should address this somehow. Let's work together as a couple to figure this out. And then be consistent, right? And then I think the second thing is to use that cost formula. Just start using it. It's going to fail sometimes. Don't give up. Keep using it. Keep working at it. And there's value in the effort, right? There's value in the failure. And the third thing is 100% accountability and a whole lot of grace, right? Because we're always going to make mistakes, and you can't. My wife, at one point, she created a strategy for herself called good versus evil, is what she called it. And I remember catching her grinning about something. I said, what's going on with you? Because I can see, and and she had kind of started to change from kind of being a little bit stressed out and bitter at home to really kind of bubbly. And I was watching this from afar and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I created a strategy for myself called good versus evil." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "Well, I realized that when my emotions are more important to me than my love for you guys, it's a problem." She said, "But she had very big emotions, my wife, right? And they would get the
Hmm.
best of her. Guilt, shame, frustration, discouragement. She played this game of attacking herself, right?" And so she said, "What I did was I made a list of negative emotions, guilt, shame, fear. Uh, she just went down a list. I wish I had it in front of me. It's actually hanging on our bulletin board in the kitchen for all the kids to see." And she said, "What I did was I realized those emotions would lead me away from goodness." And so she said, I made a list of frustration, anger, discouragement, all these things. And she had a list of maybe 10. And on the right hand side, she tried to think of an opposite emotion that would lead her to goodness, right? The opposite of fear is courage. The opposite of frustration is fascination, right? The opposite of discouragement is encouragement, right? And so she would try to catch herself in these bad emotions, right? She would get frustrated and she would say, "Oh, I'm frustrated. What's the opposite?" It's fascinated. So instead of being frustrated at my child, I'm going to be fascinated. And that means I'm going to be curious about what's going on in their minds, why they're doing that. And so she called it good versus evil. There's evil emotions. She called them evil. I didn't think some of them were evil, but she said they took her away from goodness and love. So in her mind,
Yeah.
that was evil, right? And what ended up happening is after my wife passed away, those that don't know my story, I was married to my wife for 30 years, 6 kids, and she got sick. 10 days later, she died. She was gone.
Oh,
And
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we're really sorry to hear that.
my wife and I, through the challenges we had faced with our kids, had become a top 1% happy marriage. Now, people say, "How do you quantify that?" She thought it and I thought it. That means it is, right? That's how I quantify. But we had such a wonderful, beautiful, uplifting, happy relationship. I mean, people would meet us and go, "Well, something's different with you guys," right? It was our love for each other. We had grown our love through those challenges so tight. And so when she passed away, as can be imagined, I'm married to this woman for 30 years. She is gone. I got 6 kids, right? This is now I got to keep this crap in order. I
Hmm.
mean, I mean, my best friend, my sweetheart, my wife, the mother of my children is gone. What happens to my kids now? Right? I mean, I read stories of kids that killed themselves because their mom was gone, that fell apart emotionally, that acted out, that did all this stuff. And I said, that crap ain't happening to me. I'm going to start working at this. And I sat all my kids down and I showed them my wife's good versus evil. I said, it's going to be tempting to hate God. It's going to be tempting to be bitter. By the way, those are bad emotions, right? Bitterness, right? I said,
Yeah.
we got to be we got to be conscious. We got to pay attention to how we're feeling, and no feeling. Don't let anybody tell you how to feel, right? Because we've never experienced this. We're going to have feelings we've never had before. But let's use mom's good versus evil. If it takes us away from goodness, let's think through this and say, what opposite emotion can I focus on? Because we know that what we focus on grows. And I printed off one for every family. My 2 sons that live away have them. We have ours on our bulletin board. There's one in every bathroom. There's one in every car. And it's a little worksheet that has these emotions and across from it, the, good versus evil emotions. And it really has, I believe, it's her legacy, right? Because we have thrived. It's been hard, right?
Yeah.
And
I can only
I'm
imagine.
yeah, but we have grown closer and loved more, and I've just seen it's been amazing to me to watch my kids. Right, I got me. I'm okay with
Hmm.
me, and sometimes not. I mean, in my own private recesses, right? But I want to make sure they're okay, and they have just blossomed and thrived, and it's been incredible to watch. And it's what we want. We want our kids to face hard things and use that strong will, right? That their challenge, the spirited that they have to face these challenges with courage, and push through and be happy, right? And be joyful and spread that out into the world. And so I've been able to watch that through this occurrence. And I know it's because she was conscious and she said, I can see where I'm going. I'm getting bitter. I'm getting angry. I'm at home all the time with him. It's hard. I need to be happier. How can I create something for myself to lead me to that end? Right. So
That's fantastic.
She
Now,
sounds pretty amazing.
yeah,
um, yeah,
I mean, I really, I'm at a loss for words, honestly.
yeah. It sounds like she had a really lasting impact on everyone.
Yeah, it's
That's
incredible.
awesome.
Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible.
You go ahead.
Okay. Now, did you find?
yeah, I want hold off on that. I want to share this with you guys
Yeah.
because I think we don't understand the impact that you don't understand the impact each of you has on each other and on the kids, right? The
Mhm.
same kind of impact, the legacy, the same kind of impact she's had on our family, you're creating now. Now, they might not even ever know it. You might not ever think about it, right? I didn't even think about it until she was gone, right? But now I can, what you're doing now, the podcasting, talking to people, learning, growing, that is creating that same type of situation, right? And that the impact you can have just from those small, simple things on a day-to-day basis grow into this giant, incredible world-changing thing, right? You don't have to go out and create a new software to change the world. You can change your own world, your personal world inside you, and then let that spread to your kids, right? Each of you. And it's beautiful to me to see people that are young in the very early in the kid raising process, but are saying, you know what? I want to talk about this. I want to be in it, right? I want to, so I commend you on when you said your kids were so young. You're going to face some parents that are going to say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Your kids are only 2 and 1, right? And
Yeah.
I'm going to say, no, no, no. You are starting now, right? The podcast, talking to people, hearing others' stories. It's going to create for you this world where you can thrive and you can spread that into your kids, right? And that legacy, you may never know it, but it's growing right now and it's really beautiful. So I just want to tell each of you, thank you, right? Because I can see you're running that path and it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful thing. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that.
Thank you very much for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really kind of you.
Really
We
nice.
really appreciate those kind words for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just going to ask you, now when your wife, had passed, how did the grieving, period look for you since you did have obviously 6 kids to take care of, after that? Like it's just,
Yeah, like how are you able to still parent while grieving, I think is the best way to
Yeah.
put
So
that.
I kept a diary,
Yeah.
written. I would hop on my computer every night. It was therapeutic for me. And I would talk about how I felt. And sometimes those were pretty hard emotional feeling. I mean, there was one night I was angry at God, you know, and what I did was I would write about it in real time, but I never finished my writing until I said, how am I going to flip the frame on this? Right? How am I going to figure out a way to move forward with love? Right? And so for me, what I did was I wrote and I wouldn't leave the story undone. I would say, here's what's happening to me right now, and I'm in pain. I don't want to live. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
my kids will be fine. I just want to be with her, right? But I would say, but you know what? And I would write out a plan. I would script my own movie, right? And I would say, I'm going to pray a little harder tomorrow for buoyancy and joy, and I'm going to look for beautiful things around me. And I would describe in my writing, here's my pain. It's real. It exists. You can't hide from this stuff. It's there, right? I'm not going to suppress this stuff. What I am going to do is realize what it is, and I'm going to make a plan to escape, the depths of hell is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I'm going to climb out, and here's what I'm going to do tomorrow, right? Or moving forward. And I found that what it did was it allowed me to feel that pain and that grief and that hurt, but also not live in it, right? We're all gonna we're all gonna feel it. We're all gonna visit that place of tremendous tragedy or pain or discouragement. We're gonna visit. The key is not to live there, right? When we start to live there, we start to damage ourselves and we start to damage our relationships with others, and we start to, and really what my kids did, I think, is they watched me. They said, "What is he doing?" He's the our parents are the model, and I think they did it subconsciously. They saw me stand up strong and say, "This is some hard crap, but man, we got this. We got this, guys." And they said, "We got it." Right? And I've seen them support me. One of my sons will ask me how I'm doing regularly. And if I say it's been
Oh,
tough, he'll come to me and he'll say, "You know what, Dad? We got it. Come on. We got this, right? I know it. I feel the pain too." And so, that, and I set up some systematic things I did with each of my kids. I would go out with them once a month, just them and I, and we would talk. And I would say, "Now you got to tell me what you're really feeling," and let them express that. And then almost make a plan. I'm not going to make their plan for them, but we could talk about how we can face this together, and they can lean on me, and all those things. So a lot of it is just the communication, really being conscious and thoughtful that, man, this stuff can take you down a hole that's so deep you can't escape, right? And
mm-hmm.
just knowing that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's that threat, and it can happen. You're not above it. None of us are above it. So we got to be conscious in how we approach it, and how we, and really a big part of it is connection with each other, is supporting each other very consistently, being together a lot, talking about her, facing these things together, and really kind of working through it. So,
I think we really appreciate the insight on that. That's definitely very, very good to know. We are our hopes is to in the future to kind of go on an episode about parenting while grieving, um, and see how people deal with that, especially when you gotta, you know, kind of turn the emotions off when you're handling the kids all day and still got to deal with all that stuff at the same time, right? So,
Yeah, it kind of brings back actually for me, like my papa passed away not too long ago. And I mean, with the little ones, I found it especially hard to just kind of be like switched on with the kids, but also trying to have my grieving time. And he got sick, and then he got diagnosed with cancer, and then he just went completely downhill super super quickly. We didn't have time to really process what was actually happening in that situation. But I found it very hard for me to just almost fake smile all day, be happy for the kids.
mm-hmm.
um it was very tough for
Yeah.
me, yeah, mentally to be switched on for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
again,
Hey.
it's you're right. You can't turn off those
Yeah.
things, right? You just can't. And so that's where the grace comes in, right? I'm so grateful for that. You could also beat yourself up for not being able to be the right mom for them in that moment, and that would just pile more on you,
Yeah.
right? And that's easy to do, and I'm sure some of that was done, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens. Those are the natural things that occur, that happen to us, that we have to, and we have something in our family called living consciously, right? We don't want to let our minds run down different paths. So we're always asking ourselves, what am I thinking? And catch ourselves as quickly as we can. Because loving your kids when you're in pain is not faking it. Being happy for them when you're in pain is not faking it, right? It's being happy for them in that moment. And so
Yeah.
but it feels, you want to beat yourself up. You want to say, I don't want to be fake, right? But again, it's going to be hard. Choose the hard,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Choose the hard and decide what that hard is going to be. And it gives you a chance to step back away from the emotion of it and say, here's what I'm struggling with. What's the challenge? What's my long term objective? They need to see me in pain. I'm a human. I love
Yeah.
my papa, right? They need to see, it's okay. It's not, but it needs to be seen in the right way, right? The strategy and the tactics. And so it really can be used for a lot of things that we don't really think it can be used for. But the reality is let's be thoughtful about how we manage our emotions, what we let our kids see some of the stuff they just shouldn't see. There were
Yeah.
nights.
Yeah.
My son, at the 1 year anniversary of my wife's passing, my oldest son asked me, "What are you going to do on that day?" And with a smile on my face, I said, "Well, I think I'll just dive into the depths of hell." And he didn't think it was funny. He did not. He didn't think it was funny. I said it with
No.
and I can see you guys. It's having the same impact on you. But I knew I was gonna be broken. And I said, "Now listen, I want you to know I'm taking a lifeline with me."
Yeah.
And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I know that day I will be broken. That storm is so powerful. I cannot face that storm with strength and courage. And you won't see me. I will go hide and I'm going to go into hell. And I know it. But I have a lifeline and I will pull myself out of there and I will be pulled out of there. So it's okay." And he said, "Seriously?" And I said, "It's okay." Right. And some of our kids are at a stage where they need to see it. Some not yet. Right. But you want to be conscious of what you share and what you don't. But you do want to model. I don't want to suppress my emotions and him think don't, right? It's powerful. He needs to see all those things and know that I have those things. But I'm trying to manage them in a way that allows me to be what they need me to be, but also grieve in that way. Right. And so I think coming out of it, he was like, "I get it." And he said, "I was kind of shying away from having those deep, painful emotions." I said, "It's okay. You just make sure, right? Your wife is close or a friend is close or I had somebody call me, right? I said, 'Hey, I need you to call me at about 5 o'clock.' And they said, 'Why?' I said, 'Because I'm going to dive into the depths of hell and I need you to call me. And if I don't answer, come get me.'" Right. Because I knew I've never faced a storm like that. And I knew
Yeah.
I could not handle it. So I needed to feel that, but I also needed to be able to escape and have that lifeline available. And I believe in divinity, so I also believe that I'll be helped by a higher power. And so that
Yep.
there's different ways we can do it, but certainly it's okay, right? We're human. We and your kids are human. They're going to have those emotions too. If you can show them how to do it in a beautiful, loving, kind way, and let them see you in pain, they're going to be in pain at some point. How did mom handle it? You're modeling it, right? And so I
Yeah.
think just being conscious of those things is powerful.
Well, and I think the other thing is like I always thought like, okay, my kids are really young. They don't need to see me upset. I'm a mom. Like I should be strong. I should be loving for my kids. I shouldn't, you know, show those emotions specifically, but you just can't I think a lot of parents need to know, it's okay not be okay. Um and
Recognizing that.
recognizing that. Yeah.
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 And again, I want to. It's okay to visit. You don't want to live there, right?
No.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
When you start to live there, we see some parents that start to live there, and I see this most often in bitterness. I see parents that are bitter and they're living in bitterness and they're modeling bitterness, right? And when you live there, kids think that's the way, right? Well, the world sucks. I had somebody tell me one time, you know, happy, loving people live in a happy, loving world. Angry, bitter people live in an angry, bitter world. And it said,
Hmm.
same
Yeah.
world, right? Same world, right? So
Just
what's
how
the
you look
difference?
at it.
Yeah, so powerful. So, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, just it's okay. And I've cried with my kids, right? I mean, I've let it overwhelm me, and they've seen
Yeah.
that, and they know it exists. Now, I don't live there. I visit because we have to, right? That we're human, and
Yeah,
sometimes we
Yeah.
exactly.
visit there, and we wish we wouldn't, and we have to give ourselves grace, right? We're 100% accountable, but we give ourselves a lot of grace because we're
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
can you tell by the way I say a lot of grace that I mean a lot of grace, right?
Yeah.
A lot of grace.
Uh, well, I think we're getting close to the end here, but we have a couple questions that we always like to ask our guests.
Okay.
We're gonna ask the two fun questions, and we'll ask one more serious question right at the end.
Okay.
So what would you do if you won the lottery? Let's say tomorrow you won the whatever the big, what is it, Powerball down there, whatever they call it.
Yeah, nobody would know that I won the lottery. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think my life would change much other than um, I would just have all day and all night to really go out and just serve families and just I'm I want I know what it feels like to be in a stressed out world, wondering if your family's going to survive. And I also know what it feels like to live in a world where, man, I've got a top 1% happy
Mm-hmm.
family. And I want that for everybody. Cause man, if everybody lived in a top 1% happy family, the world would be so beautiful. It just, right. The joy just flow. And so that's what I would do. I don't think anybody would know. I don't think my life would change as far as outwardly, as much as I would have all the time in the world to serve and hopefully make a difference in other people's lives at a higher level. And that may be what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I see myself uh, serving more and more families. I'm running down that path as hard and as fast as I can, and I'll never give up. It's one of those things that I've decided it's valiant, and so I'll die trying. But I think I'll be serving a lot more families. I'll be helping them, sharing information that'll allow them to create a world where they, as parents, can be happy and thrive and express joy, and their kids can feel that and just start spreading that out into the world, right? So in 5 years,
Yeah,
I just hope to expand my reach. I don't think a lot
that's
else will change other than, hopefully I'm still healthy. The older you get, the more your body tends to break down. So,
that's really great.
yeah.
Yeah, helping lots of people in need is families in need, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, obviously, you talked a lot, and you had a lot of really great takeaways and a lot of great information.
Very informative. Yes.
For the listeners at home, this can be probably a difficult question for you. What do you want your biggest takeaway to be for anyone listening to this show?
My biggest takeaway for people that are listening.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Uh, if I had to just say it quickly, I think it's a real. Your kids don't have to be out of control for you to start taking a lot of action now, right? So I,
Hmm.
I guess that it's kind of a warning, which is, you might say, well, my kid does some things occasionally, but not all the time. I would suggest get busy right now implementing things, even if they're, just teetering up. All too often I see a parent say, well, my kid's not that out of control, or they're strong willed, but they'll grow out of it. I don't think it's a great idea to not take action. You know, I think it's a great idea to take action. You're taking a big risk by not taking action and implementing and working at it. Doing the work that's going to get you those results instead of
Yep.
sitting back, right? And default parenting. So that's the takeaway I hope most parents get. And if you say, well, my child's not that strong willed, or they're spirited but not that much, it's okay if I don't get too involved. I mean, love is enough. No, it's not. Okay. It's just not enough. Okay. Love is not enough. Love is important, really important, but it's not enough. Because there's a guy in prison on death row whose mama loves him. It's not enough.
Yep.
And,
Mm.
and just, so that's the takeaway is decide that love is not enough. It's very important. Highly promote that. But man, take a little action work. It's going to be hard. Do the good, hard stuff that gets you those long lasting, loving, kind results and watch what happens, right? Watch the joy that gets spread and watch the impact you can have, and even better, your kids can have on other people. And it's
Yeah.
just that's the takeaway.
That's fantastic. And as well, for our listeners, where can they find more about your book? Like, do you have a website that they can go to? Just stuff like that.
So if you go to Kyle Jetsel on Facebook, Kyle, I think my name is spelled up there, Jetsel. That's the best
Yep.
place to find me. Just I guess I am my own brand. Go there and you can connect with me on Facebook, become my friend. And if you have questions, you can always message me or whatever the case may be. I'm happy. Any questions you have or anything, any way I can be helpful. And I'm rewriting my book right now. This is what happens when you do some stuff like that. You
Hmm.
write it, and then a year later, you look at it and you go, "Oh, that sucks," and so you rewrite it. You know how that goes? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you learn more and you grow more, and you think it's not. I need to, So I'm revamping it a little bit now. I've got it at a publisher there. They love it, but I tore it up a couple months ago because I really see that I can help more. So I guess I just
Hmm.
need to put it out there. Yeah, that would be the best way.
Yeah.
Kyle Jetsel, I'm on Facebook. Reach out to me, become friends with me, and yeah, that's the best way.
Perfect.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's going to do it for today. Really appreciate you having you on. It's very informative. And I really hope that a lot of people get a lot out
A
of
lot
this.
out of this one. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm Jeff,
And I'm Jenna.
and that's it for the Real Life Parenting Podcast. Bye.